two advocates for Shawano Schools, various backgrounds. You want to share about yours real quick?
So my former background was in education. I graduated from UW-Madison and took my first job teaching kindergarten to third grade special ed in inner city Phoenix at a school that was very low SES, very high ELL population. So I had some experience with that. We were actually a failing school under NCLB, and so we had a lot of resources in place for struggling kids, low achieving kids. And so initially when I saw some of the things going on in the district, that was my intent, was to come to the table and discuss some of the things that I had utilized in prior teaching experience that had worked, and asked, what did we have in place here? So my intent coming into working with the district was to be a partnership and collaboration, looking at what's missing that could move us forward. I also then taught in Middleton as 7th grade special ed teacher, so totally different demographic. There was the haves and the have-nots, different age groups, so I felt like I had some good background experience that could help, guide our district, and I just wanted to be a resource and community advocate and concerned parent at that point.
And 3 kids in the system.
And 3 kids in the district, so personal reasons as well.
So I am actually now living in Cheyacton, full transparency. We live 3 houses down the river from Grandma, so my husband grew up there. But we had lived in Shawano for the past 10 years up until December when Jenny here, awesome realtor, helped us with our transition. A little shout out. Anyhow, I served as the HR coordinator for COVID year, as I'm lovingly calling it, 2020 to 21, and had a lot of exposure to challenges, especially during COVID within the district, and saw a lot of opportunity and worked with amazing people, and chose for various reasons to step away from that. My husband was not flying for Delta at the time, and then got called back sooner than we thought. We thought it might be a 3 to 5 year thing, but long story short, had 2 kids that were also in the Shawano School District, involved there, and now transitioning out. But my friends here are here the last 10 years. It's the longest I've lived anywhere in my adult life. And it was a very sad transition, but we're only half an hour away and here twice a week for Taekwondo. So we'll be back quite a bit and doing lots of things here. Continue to visit this fine establishment and several others. So just had a heart, saw a lot of challenges last year, and with recent turn of events, kind of March-ish, when budget announcements, school closure, scare, all that stuff, Sheila stepped up, and while I was trying to raise some awareness last year, Sheila was by my side, and we just reconnected on this topic and have come together with several other very, very passionate people who want to see things turned around so the kids can get what they need by staff getting what they need.
So after the big announcement, going to that first school board meeting, I sat and watched some really eloquent speakers ask some great questions and present some great things, and from there kind of reached out to a few and kind of created our own subcommittee, and then after some time with that, we named ourselves class and asked for participation from community members, so citizens listening and advocating for Shawano schools. And through that mission, we've just tried to disseminate more information. Michael Thorne's been our cameraman. You have access to work sessions, committee meetings, board meetings, and any events that we've run through that avenue, so that we can provide more information. The basis behind it is that a more informed community becomes a more involved community, and we'd like to see greater community participation in our public education system, since it's our taxpayer money in hand, and we want our voices to be heard and questions to be answered. So
very good. I'm sorry, as I stepped away, did you cover the class?
Yes, I did.
So first off, we want to open up just with some general thoughts, feedback, maybe either why you're here or what you would like to see for Shawano. And it doesn't have to be necessarily district specific, but this is a very amazing community. As a transplant from Grand Rapids, Michigan originally, who has lived in 3 other states other than this, I absolutely fell in love with Shawano and legit chose, had no reason to live here, but we found a house, bought it in the community. That was 3 houses ago now, relocated to what was going to be a forever home, since made the decision to move to our next forever home. But anyhow, we are, Jenny's laughing because she's heard this a couple times. But anyhow, this is an amazing community. There's so much potential. I helped actually Sheila's husband start the Young Professionals organization. I was an ambassador with the Green Bay area young professionals, and I just saw this current of all this excitement and fun stuff like that magma lava just right underneath the surface, ready to erupt. And here we are in living proof that this community is turning around, and I shouldn't say turning around like it was bad, but really coming into its element. Like I'm getting excited about this, and I'm not even from here. I have no family here, but I see it, and I've seen the passion, the young professionals that are committing their resources into like bringing this community into its true potential. It's amazing. So that's my 2 cents, but I'd like to go around, maybe, I don't know, I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but hopes, dreams, what do you love about Shawano? What do you want to see keep getting better?
Or you can say you're putting that too.
I'll say, because I was a teacher, I left teaching in 2014, and when I was teaching, like, you were proud to be a teacher in Shawano. Like, it was just a really great thing. It was a great school district. Now, obviously, looking at all these resignations, that's not the case anymore, and we need to turn the ship around. Real estate-wise, we need to have a great school so that people want to live here. Right. So our houses keep turning over like they should.
Right.
So.
Absolutely. Education and medical access. Top 2 things. Depends on the order, depending on your age, but top 2 things people look for in a community. So, any other feedback before we?
I'm sorry. I'm just. My name's Craig Irwin. I'm from Shawano originally. I was born and raised. I graduated in '99. I moved back. Full disclosure, I worked for Representative Gary Talkin down in Madison for the last since '06 to 22. So about a month ago, I moved back home because I was wanted to run for office. I wanted to run for the state assembly, and I'm not here to
Campaign.
Campaign. I want to be perfectly honest. I want to be an ally, and I want to be able to help. I lost my mom about a year ago, and when I saw the stuff about a lot of the horror stories about mental health following COVID, it really got me. And so when I saw that you guys were meeting, I was really concerned about Shawano before because I graduated from there, and I know the potential it can be, and it should be. Like you said, education's the key. I got my diploma here in '99, graduated college in '03, and I just got my master's about a month ago. And I believe in it, and it's the key to success moving forward. So that's why I'm here. And I hope to be helpful to you guys, regardless of what happens in August.
Yeah. Appreciate your participation.
All right. So what I thought would be a good layout is to go through, since everybody's got different schedules and whatnot, go through this fact sheet, kind of info sheet that we prepared. We'll get your email before you leave, and we can follow up with some links to articles and different references too if you're interested in getting that follow up. So if there's some clarifying questions along the way, please raise them. But let's try to get through this sheet and get the information out, and then kind of have a discussion afterwards and circle back that way. People can hear everything, and we can, go from there. And Sheila and I can stay around for a little bit. I know that.
Absolutely. Yep. And just to preface before we dive into this too, just thinking back as part of class, I did do an event called Board Meeting 101 that you could find on our class Facebook page. There was quite a learning curve and understanding how all of this process works: committee meetings, board meetings, work sessions, policies. So you can get a background of that watching that. I know we'll kind of touch on some of it here, but that's a more thorough dive into that. So that is available.
Do you want to go through the structure?
Sure. So just basic public school structure. Wisconsin is a self-governing state. Our school board members are elected. We have 9 members that each serve 2-year terms at a time. They rotate at different times, so we don't have 9 out of being replaced at once. The school board sets the school policies, and they are responsible for making sure they are followed. State statute must be followed as well. The school board hires the superintendent, who is responsible for running the district under the school board's oversight. So I kind of did a reminder of this at the latest board meeting, that it is the community and the citizens who then elects our school board, who then hires the superintendent. So a reminder of how public education is structured.
So a couple board policies in there, I won't necessarily read them, but the district organization and the board district administrator relationship. One of the key pieces to a healthy functioning district, there's a lot of trust involved. the board policies and state statutes allow for a checks and balances system, assuming they are followed. So concerns have been raised by staff members, our advocacy group, as we have really become very familiar, way more familiar than I ever wanted to be with board policies at any level. But those are all available on the district website. You can see it's the format is one that many school districts follow, Neola. It's paid for and supported, so they can update it and provide that. But if you're ever curious or want some light reading material, you can access those. But those are just a couple you can kind of peek into just to better understand that school board structure.
And that's also an area for follow-up, because as our groups looked into things and asked questions, we have also found that board policies that have not been followed or have been misrepresented, so that as we kind of went through this process became some of those red flags, wondering, are they being held accountable? And what is the recourse if you don't follow a policy? And it kind of seems like, oh, whoops, we'll get around to it. So realizing that we as citizens need to be the ones holding the board accountable for those things, who then needs to be holding the superintendent accountable.
Which goes back to that self-governing state. There's no superhero out of Madison that's going to come and rescue, even if you prepare for 5 hours a very long list of concerns and email it off.
We've tried. It really comes back to us as citizens holding the power in public education. Yes,
Sharon. I just wanted to say I'm here from O'Connell Falls. Through our struggles in our school district, I met Chris, and we're finding out so many districts are under the same frustrations and injustices. One of the things I wanted to say about Neola is that I was on the school board for a while until I publicly resigned in December, because I just had it with so much injustice. But we contract with this group called Neola, and in my opinion, it's like we're all these cookie cutter policies that I don't know if we're specifically really looking at them for our school district. Do you know what I mean? I don't think they're individualized, and that concerns me. You know what? I would love if we were back to Little House on the Prairie. We are not, but come on, let's make our district unique. And I think there's something real easy about buying into these policies, because they then guarantee you, if you keep word for word, that they have responsibility, liability, But if you change the wording, I think that affects where they stand. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
CYA thing.
Yeah.
So moving on, next topic, enrollment. So having a sales background and private sector background, primarily in both management, business leadership, and HR. My background I went to school for. Enrollment, think of that as like the sales. That's a sales opportunity. Our product is education, and there is a price per head, though we don't want to reduce it to that from a funding standpoint. The primary sources of funding are from the state at roughly $10,000 per student enrolled in the district each year. So for each student that's not in the district, that is a $10,000 loss. Over the course of K-12, that's $130,000 that each kid that starts from kindergarten and graduates with the district brings in from a financial standpoint. So as a salesperson, if I don't have a student coming back, I would want to know why. I'd want that sale. I am very greedy. Aren't you, Jenny, when you're selling? But for the purposes of funding and whatnot, when everything's so tight, and there is definitely, I want to acknowledge that there are some challenges, as Sharon was saying, some challenges from a state level, and there's definitely more issues to address. They're across the state, and I've learned that the more we've dug into this. But just understanding, that's kind of the basic what there is to understand. So if our only product is education and keeping students in seats, or even virtual seats at this point, that should be one of the main areas of focus and priority from a former sales manager standpoint, right? So I listed just a couple of things on here in 2/5 of 20, so February 5th, 2020, there's a news article that I can send you the link for. It was quoted that Superintendent Randy Anderson informed the school board on Monday that they are currently working on a process to help determine why families are choosing to leave the district or enroll their students in a different district. So that was over 2 years ago now that comment was made. And I'm just going to throw out, COVID happened, it sucked, it happened literally across the world. It cannot be used as an excuse for anything. I believe in grace as much as the next person, but there's still accountability and there's still results. and things that need to happen and take place. So forget COVID, we're not going to mention it, that's the last of it. So 2 years ago, it was acknowledged, declining enrollment. State level wise, there's declining enrollment. I happened to reach around and or call around. I can tell you Bondwell is maxed out in open enrollment. They're busting at the seams. The parochial schools are both. Their waiting list at St. James, Sacred Heart, is on the up and up. I heard Wolf River Lutheran's very high. Homeschool, which is another option that I'll say COVID once more, but became a very viable option and made sense and more appealing as there's more challenges and things going on. You know, that's another, you know, competitor, so to speak. And then we've got Menominee's got a lot of kids that are open enrolled from the Shawano School District. Gresham had 25 this year from the Shawano School District alone, entire class worth. So you've got all this influx in the surrounding communities. Yeah, we're on the decline. So kind of comment on, so 2 years ago it was noted, need to do something about this. It's a problem, good, awesome, that's step one. So last Monday, two days ago, the board meeting, we received saw a presentation about enrollment in and enrollment out, open enrollment, where it's a choice state. So you can choose to send your child anywhere you want, and the budget, that $10,000 will follow that student basically, unless it's homeschool, then this district doesn't get it. It was noticed that they hadn't really been looking into this for about 1.5 years, I think was what they shared. They did send out surveys to the students that did not enroll this year. They got about a 10% return rate. So they know about why 10% left, and it's a structured survey. It wasn't very personal. I was told a former superintendent personally reached out to ask why a student had left in another case where, you know, following the social media.
Making those personal connections, communication, follow up. You know, if we're looking at it, it's I know a rough estimate saying $10,000, but if a phone call can be worth $10,000
for 1 year,
it seems like a valid use of time to make that phone call and get a better understanding going forward to see what could we change. If there's nothing, there's nothing. But have we really gathered all that information so that we have a thorough understanding of why kids are no longer coming here? Because we used to have an enrollment in number that kept us in the black.
Which is if you flip the page, so this information was shared in the presentation last night. So it was about 3 years ago, Shawano School District had about 50 more students enrolling in, a net increase of 50 over. There's kids going out, kids coming in. There's a net of about 50 more students for about $500,000 worth of revenue from the state that was coming in. This next year, it's projected to be just a slight negative, so not quite even breaking even, but I think it had 240 enrolling out, 237 rolling in, so a net loss of 3 students. So the lines of in and out have been getting closer and closer to where now they're going the wrong way. So that data was shared at the school board meeting on Monday. Enrollment projections, let's talk about that. So the budget deficit and the decision to potentially close a school building, which is not off the table, it just was not financially or logistically feasible to make the accommodations to merge into 3 buildings.
Right.
So that was taken off as a solution for this upcoming school year,
right,
but it's not off the table altogether. So it was shared in the January 11th, 2022 meeting, State of the District, is what they were calling it. An estimated soft numbers are showing a projected decline of about 50 students each year. So the next 4 years, we are projecting a decline of 200 students by 2026. Some of the data that they were using was not accurate. They were using just, I think, local birth rates. There was a lot of confusion around that. It was noted that the district has not invested in obtaining professional guidance on this topic, as it was quoted, soft numbers, you know, just kind of carrying out the 50 students a year or whatnot. I spent a good hour on the phone with Peter Thillman. I don't know if any of you have had the pleasure of talking to Peter. He is the Shawano County Economic Progress Incorporated Director. I'm not exactly sure how long he's been here. He replaced Dennis Healing a little bit back. But I quoted just a few things on there. Birth rates for 2021 up 8 to 10%. We got some COVID babies, I'll use it again, coming out. I know a few friends that were planning on having another one that, lo and behold, more business for Jamie. Usually we experience in the county 5 to 10 individuals more coming in to the area than leaving. Last year, the net growth was 200, don't have ages on it, but about 200 more in the domestic from the States, not necessarily another country, just point that out. One of the biggest things to learn, though, from this, based on speaking with Peter, demographers don't know whether this is a blip in the data due to COVID or an actual new trend. Now, I can tell you just from following what's been going on, people that live in the city that all of a sudden now didn't have to report to work because they couldn't, they were told they had to work from home, all of a sudden are like, well, if I'm going to work from home, I want to work somewhere peaceful and serene. And I'm sure Jenny can testify to this. People were looking to move to more rural areas, they want to live where they play. And this is an amazing community for that. There is so much potential around that. But at the end of the day, you cannot predict what's going on based on trends because everything's been disrupted. Like, there is not enough data out there to make any firm predictions. Sure as heck not enough to close a building around.
And even going back in 2016, we were projected to be at increase in enrollment in 2022, which obviously is not the case. So going back in time, we know that projections are just that. They're projections, they're best guesses. That data isn't linear by any means. So when they show a chart and it's continual decline, that's not as accurate as it could be. And so making drastic changes to the district without even considering the possibility that data could be misleading seems like a short-sighted move at this point. In addition, we looked into the other side of the coin. You know, if we do have this extra space right now and we do have lower enrollment numbers and we have the space in the buildings, how else could we utilize that? And we've tried to bring this to the table, and it hasn't been out for discussion yet within the district level. Looking at bringing Head Start into the buildings. They're already being serviced off-site by our district employees. Or the possibility of 3K. We know that there's successful 3K programs at the private schools. Is it something that we want to at least venture into, have a discussion about? Not saying it's a for sure, but is it something worth having a conversation about? Talking to local daycares and knowing that there's waiting lists. Like, where can we help each other as a community and meet the needs?
Can I ask Jamie? Can I put you on the spot? What is the?
It's under 2 and under is where we're struggling. And I mean, there is definitely a surge. So that's my concern. If they shut down a building, we are going to be looking at an influx of kids. That's my personal opinion, but every child care center is feeling the same way.
Right. So again, there's that disconnect, that contradictory of like what the district's telling us and what we're seeing within the community. Have those discussions been had? Have we really looked at all avenues? What if, you know, this bleak picture is being played? What if it isn't so bleak? That's a good thing, right? And can we have conversation around that?
And Bondwell 2L Share is launching a 3K program. They have filled 2 classes, and I thought they were capping, and I just heard they've opened up a 3rd 3K class, and yeah, they're meeting the need and addressing it. And they are also maxed out on open enrollment, by the way, in general. So Shawano Educators Association survey results. I have passed around, and I think I got every one on each table at least, just a highlight of that. There's actually a 27-page or so document with comments that teachers, primarily teachers, have shared. A lot of concerns around various things, and you can look at the actual scores.
And there was a link to that again on that class Facebook page, and this has also been provided to all board members. Again, at this point, they have not had a conversation regarding these results. So although they've been provided the information, there's not been a conversation amongst board members about what that SEA teacher survey is saying.
So, and that was 115 respondents. It was geared towards teachers. I know there's a few other non-teachers that filled it out. I'm sorry?
Yeah, teachers and staff.
Yeah, but based on the feedback and whatnot, it wasn't tracking specifically. But anyhow, it's something like 60% of the teachers filled it out, 60 or 70%. It was a very high percentage. So the budget deficit, you know, what has been, and when it's been communicated. Oh, whoops, sorry, that was a little blip that I didn't get to rearrange. Sorry, I didn't proofread as best. But ignore that little comment. That's not in the order of operations. Technology, though. Do you want to chat about that?
All right.
there was an efficiency study, and actually, why don't I let you talk
Sure,
about that?
because I was told about this by a former business manager. She was the first one to bring it to my attention in conversation, and then it's taken quite a bit of time and effort to track down the sufficiency study, but some prior board members would have been on the board in 2016 when the study was completed. It indicated a lot of things and gave kind of a roadmap on how to move forward within the district, but one part of it to note under technology was they actually then this group came back. It was a consulting firm. They came back and resurveyed the staff, and the area of highest satisfaction in 2018 at over 87% were the type of work people they work with and the technology provided. So we know that we've moved to a major upheaval and change within our technology, and I've asked the question as to what the basis was for that. If our staff at the time were feeling like it was really working well for the kids, what was the need for the change? Because now contrast that to now and the most recent survey, how the technology rollout has gone. But on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being a negative response, our average score was a 1.8, and teachers have given a lot of information as to why that isn't going so well. And they did talk about that at Monday's work session as well with a consultant. So just something to be aware of, a concern within the district right now. It definitely costs a lot of money and maybe isn't enhancing student learning in the way that it was intended. So how many years, how much time, how many resources are we putting into it, and is it giving us the feedback and the payout that we intended for it to do?
Based on just numerous comments, like I said, 27 pages of data total, one of the largest frustrations was the technology. Lack of support. As great as the tech team is and has been like tirelessly trying to fix all the different things, it was not rolled out as strategically as it could have been based on the feedback from the teachers, the people that had to work with it. They didn't have what they needed. They were going and buying their own devices to make their screens work because they had this new monitor that didn't work with what they had. And there's so many different comments. So
that piece ties back into the budget deficit. Obviously, there was a huge cost to rolling that out, and then it also rolls into the next topic with staff departures. We're talking about this teacher frustration with this. This was noted as one of a reason for departure from many staff.
So in addition to being very scared about what's going to happen when a building closure is announced very prematurely, not well thought out, not based on solid information, people freaked out. My son, I actually learned about it from my son who was attending Olga Brunner, coming home and saying, they're closing our school, my friends are going to have to go back to Hillcrest, because he knew he was going to be interacted. But it's, that's how I heard about it. And it was traveling at the student level. And then Sheila and I connected, and the rest is history. But
and at the same time that those options were given, there were also non-renewal notices that went out to 9 teachers. So teachers felt that, like, am I next? Are they going to have a spot for me next? So there was a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, and so they'd rather secure a place elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. So on the tables, I put a sheet that has the latest, up-to-date, as of yesterday, professional and administrative staff. So these are people that require licenses or are in an administrative position. They do not include paraprofessionals. Our IT department, I know 2 of the main IT people are leaving. It doesn't include secretaries.
Right.
Though we don't have a way to track that because that data is not contained in the board minutes.
So we know the data isn't comprehensive, but if anything, it's a low estimate, not a high estimate.
Yeah, it's inclusive of everyone since July 1st is the beginning of the school year or fiscal year, goes through June 30th. So we're not until the end of the year. But at this point, from just years of experience that are not coming back, 750 years, 7.5 centuries are going at this point. Currently, 22.33% of licensed staff and administrators are departing, which is scary. The number of employees in the last 3 years that have held the following key leadership positions. So talking about turnover of our main people on the letterhead, director of finance, we've had 3, including the interim between the 2 years ago and now. Director of pupil services, that individual is leaving this year, so we've had 1. Director of HR, it was a combined role with finance before. There's 2 different people. It's currently vacant. There's no one in the HR department at all at the moment. Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, which later became the Director of Personalized Learning, but it's the same position per se, but there's been a different person each of the last 3 years. And then if you look at the building administrative turnover chart right after that, it indicates where everybody is going and decisions made. Just look at that first column. I don't have headers on the columns, but this first column stands for local experience. That's how many years they were with the district. So Aaron Manders was brought in to replace Terry Schultz at Olga Brenner, who was here for 8 years. Stuart Russ was here for 8 years. Now he's heading to Wittenberg to be a principal. Scott Swizik, 20 years. Troy Edwards, his entire career, 27 years. So his announcement went to staff yesterday. It's not recognized by the school board as of yet.
And as Chris pointed out, that's a 125% turnover rate within administration, which seems impossible. What we actually had 2 people leave within a year at Olga Brenner. So we have lost all building administrators plus.
And right now,
So has anybody reached out to these specific?
so at this point, they have not. Some of them have not yet completed their contracts. So their exit interviews are not yet happening or being made public. So
Consistent message.
Right.
What are we waiting for?
right, and so we're waiting to see who will speak and what they have to say for the reasoning.
by comparison, just so you know, I was sharing with you guys earlier, I quoted data from the State Department of Public Instruction. Shows that principal turnover entering this last school year, last year, not the one we completed, was the lowest level since 2010. On average, 18.4% turned over in 2021. Only 15.5% of principals left to go somewhere else. So that's, I mean, it's not like it's happening all over. We know superintendents are slightly up. They typically don't stick around for super long. But principals, they do have some staying power. That's a really incredible retention rate as a state level average. The efficiency study noted that 62.5% of administrators and support staff have been with the district for over 10 years. After June 30th, that will be 0 for building administrators. So timeline, budget deficit, that little note earlier that I didn't move forward.
Should be over here, yeah.
Want to point out that, actually that's some of this, kind of the timeline that we're about to go into. Referendums have been passed in other communities. There was some money passed up by athletic boosters. Just a lot of challenges from a financial statement. One of the things that board policy earlier, and actually it's more of a state statute, financials are supposed to be provided to the school board and to the community via board minutes on a monthly basis. Those have not been published in a few years at least.
The last 3 years.
The last 3 years. So there has been no financial data shared with the community via the minutes as required by state statute. We have, and numerous other people have been trying to get detailed financial statements. We've been sent to the DPI site for budget information, which don't tell me what you should spend, tell me what you have spent and on what.
And that is an open records request that we have done that has not yet been fulfilled. And that's something that we shouldn't even have to do in open records. It should be available online through board docs on agendas. And so waiting for weeks and still not having that is a Freedom of Information Act violation.
It is.
So we're verging on that.
Budget
What's the
deficit.
response to that when you?
There's been no response. So we've been reaching out to media personnel to make responses on our behalf at this point because community members are not getting responses about open records.
But under the budget deficit title, so the timeline of learning about the deficit. So that's one of the concerns. You know, it's not like $2 million is just unaccounted for. You don't know what, where, when, or whatever. Not that they spent $2 million that's unaccounted for, but next year they were projecting $2.2 million. So January 11th at State of the District meeting, no information was shared about a concern. In fact, it was quoted in an article, the Josh Swanson, Director of Finance, saying that we are in a healthy position to take on additional debt. February 14th, the district makes initial announcements about the $2 million debt. I think that was in conjunction with some local building announcements. So they were starting to announce internally what was going on. And then March 16th was actually when the community was made more thoroughly aware of the deficit, as well as the option to balance the budget, including closing a building, laying off teachers, and program cuts. At that point, they were already serving, during the school day, mind you, preliminary layoff notices so people can start looking. Those were later approved. There were 5 staff members that were told, including one in particular, a 20-year elementary reading interventionist that could have been reallocated somewhere else. And that was one of the major shocks. I mean, there was many, but that right there, the efficiency study noted how we need to invest in the elementary level, support more so, first-hand or frontline support. So referendum. So everybody should have received, living in the school district, either email or paper copy of these survey for the referendum to get feedback moving forward. So there's $52 million, a $26 million operating, and a $26 million capital. So, and then there's a reoccurring debt. There's 3 buckets that you can go off a referendum for. You can only ask for 2 at one voting session, and these were the 2 that consultants had advised that this take place. So there's going to be more information on that, but that has been proposed basically as the only solution to handle this, aside from already cutting some people and whatnot. They did pass the decision to use ESSER funds, so government relief money for COVID, to cover the budget deficit next year. That gets through next year, but unless more things are done, either get more students back in or track new students, whatever, right now it doesn't look good. But let's start striking. If you turn the page, the final back page, there's a little chart. I pulled that from the DPI, Department of Public Instruction website. The April 22 referendums, there were 81 that were applied for. You can see that reoccurring or non-reoccurring debt, so that's a capital, reoccurring, and actually I'm not going to speak to exactly, but those are the 3 buckets that school districts applied for. The ones that passed, there were, what was it? Do my math, that first category, 3525 is 65 that passed. So of this 81, 65 got what they asked for. Tigerton being one of the local ones that I know. Menominee passed a $31 million referendum. They're really gearing up to be a destination district, as we've heard that term used quite a bit, and I've seen talks around that. So there's teachers that have been getting a lot of good raises and whatnot, and that's a lot of our teachers that worked here, including who would have been my kindergartner's teacher this past year, went a week and a half before to Menominee, reported amazing, just love it there, absolutely love it there, getting everything that they need. So that's from a former staff perspective. They're gaining the support. The referendum passed pretty high too. They didn't have a lot of opposition to it. But this is something that, had the community been better informed about the issues, maybe had the district had a better grasp on what was going on and could have planned a little bit more like these 81 other districts, maybe things would have moved forward a little bit more slowly. So just showing comparison. It's not a healthy financial situation in a lot of places. Shawano School District is not unique in that standpoint, but there were opportunities that were missed. They're trying to do something now, but given the climate, I mean, school board members have been quoted saying that they're not. There's no way that referendum.
It'll be interesting to see what the results of the survey show and see how our community feels at this stage of the game, entrusting more money to a district that is now not showing great management of funds at this point and presenting options that we don't have full information about. A lot of unanswered questions at this point.
The closing that I want for the formal part that we'll be presenting, we'll go into talking and whatnot, or loose discussion. Peter Thelman, when I had spoken with him, one of the, and he's a SCAPI director I mentioned earlier, one of the main challenges that lots of communities face, but especially Shawano, is housing. Getting people into affordable housing, marketplace housing. The challenge that is not unique to Shawano in the fact that we're rural, other rural communities face the same challenge. Broadband access is huge. If you don't have broadband access to a lot, Jenny, does anybody want to live where they can't get good internet?
It's a question I get on every country property.
The number one, I don't know how many people ask that about us too. Yeah, so it's first and foremost, right? Red River, some amazing lots out there. I would never live there for a million years, even right next to my egg lady and get fresh farm, fresh eggs, whatever. No, whatever. But anyhow, the ring, as it's called, I don't have the terminology, but the major infrastructure that needs to go down to allow for the smaller companies to feed off of it and provide more internet. Peter told me he's been working hard with some organizations. That's expected to be in the next year. They found a local outfit that has an established rapport with the greater communities around us, and they're going to be putting that in. From there, it's it's another year to 2 years before all the little guys can come in and route them and set up the sites and allow for that infrastructure for more development to take place. For people from Chicago that are sick of whatever, the hour commute, and don't really even need to go to the office anymore because almost nobody needs to, they can come live in their place that they're coming up to on the weekends anyway and live here year round and live where they work, where they play, live where they play. So I want to end with a quote from Peter, and it just really resonated with me when he said this, because I said this about 10 years ago. Not exactly verbatim, but like my hope and dream for what I saw emerging from the community, what I intended at early on to be my long-term community, and it's still an extension of my community, only half an hour away. Wisconsin communities face similar challenges as Shawano, but Shawano has put itself in a very positive position for future growth and investment. The city's initiatives, particularly in downtown, have created energy and encouraged private investment throughout the community. This vibrancy can be felt in downtown, seen in the increased housing development throughout the community, and in the expansion of the manufacturing base. Shawano is on the right track and poised for an even brighter future. Comes back down to two things, though, that need to be in place. Medical access, state of care, check. Education, solid education, right? So that's why we're here. We really appreciate everyone coming. We want to kind of open it up for more general discussion. This is everything we prepared to kind of put out all factual. I have references and sites and everything. Peter allowed me, he wrote up the exact quote. I'm like, I want to end with some of that good stuff you gave me. Like, I was so energized after talking to him. I just love that stuff.
Would also welcome, additional questions. What have we not covered? What have we not asked yet that we could still be asking of board members? And just making a plea to get more people involved, more people asking questions. When they keep hearing the same voices and asking the same questions, I feel like we're starting to fall on deaf ears. And if we can get more people stepping up, speaking out, asking questions, giving their opinions, this really needs to be a community-wide effort for our community-wide schools.
So where are things at for change?
Good question.
Right here, baby. We need more voices going to board members because they are sick of us. I'm pretty sure they don't read many of the emails that I send anymore, even though they are very factually based. I've used as many 3-minute intervals of speaking in community comments as I possibly could. And at this point, my son, my youngest, we kept at Sacred Heart when his teacher left. We were utilizing speech services because both of my kids were speech kids. Oldest, we kept at Olga Brenner. Open enrolled him through the rest of the year to have that consistency. I no longer have a child in the district, I just have a heart in the district. So I'm not gonna stand up and speak, but we need more people standing up and speaking, and we need, just like I always see, write your legislator, all this, you know what I mean? I've never gotten involved at that level. At this level, I feel like people can make a difference.
Yeah.
You know, there is a chance. There are good people that have maybe been misguided or whatnot, not had all the information that they needed to make solid decisions, that are sitting in the board seats. We need them to be informed. They need to hear from everybody, as many people as possible, that something needs to get. When your friends, your neighbors, the 22.2% of the professional licensed administrative staff are leaving, one of which a principal of 21 whatever years, Scott Swizik, going to be a teacher, which God bless his heart, like he's going to be in his child's high school, for better or worse for her, from the sounds of it. But when somebody's stepping down from a principal, you don't hear about that. So, I don't know. It's just one example. I can't speak to, what's on Scott's heart or why he made the decision, but the fact that 5 principals made the same decision, a similar decision this year to leave.
Yeah, that's nuts.
One thing that we've been requesting is just a community forum, a place where there is dialogue between board members and community. Right now, all we have is email, calling, and then talking at community comments, but they can't respond to us. So I would love to see a forum where board members can talk and have an open dialogue with community members, and we can kind of flush out some of these issues and get questions answered in the moment. I'd love to see that without the district administration present, where the people can connect with the board members that they elected, since they are here to represent us, first and foremost.
Exit interviews.
Exit
Go back to who conducts them and where does that information go. The other thing is, there's a lot of people that won't do them simply because the information doesn't go on. So how does the public get that information as to, you see all these teachers leaving, but they don't know why?
Yeah.
Nobody seems to be speaking, they're not speaking out about, what are they afraid of, is what people are asking.
Right.
So it's hard to make a decision, and I'll speak for some of the elderly generation, because I'm a little older than the rest of you, but is the fact that how can we make a decision just based on all of this when we don't even know why these people are leaving?
Right. I think people are looking for more facts and data, so getting more teachers coming forward and speaking their truth. I think, when they're working for the district, they have a fear of retaliation. Once they leave the district, they have the fear of it following them to their next job. So it's a complex issue, but without that information, it does keep us in that wondering why exactly.
Unless you're full-blown exiting the district or education, never to come back, and by that time you might be way too burnt out to say anything. It's completely fear of missing out, fear of not getting that next job as a result of something that was said. So there have been a few brave souls that spoke up at the school board meeting, and they, I think both of them said that they were speaking on behalf of other teachers, that they were retiring and they were willing to say what was on the mind of many. The silent majority is what I was getting a lot of feedback from last year when I was reaching out to try to understand, because they really literally feel there's going to be a target on their back.
There's also been the problem of being dismissed or discredited, even if you do speak out and have things to say, that they kind of give different reasons as to what those complaints were about, dismissing.
So the superintendent has the upper hand.
As of right now.
Yep. But as far as exit interviews go, I personally, HR, like I said, was the department I was within, and my background, I have shared lots of guidance and feedback. Whether or not they listen to any of it, none of it's been put into place, but currently we do not have an HR department. We have 0 HR employees employed by the district. We have a consultant that is getting paid $700 a day to do things for the district in the HR capacity. I won't go into great detail, but one of the things that she is tasked with doing right now is to conduct the exit interviews. And I can tell you, just on quick scrolling through, people leaving the district, they're not going to waste their time, is what I'm reading exactly. Why do they want to speak to someone that has absolutely no vested interest in the Shawano community, the Shawano School District, and pour their hearts out only for it to go nowhere? And on Monday at the work session, the consultant had said flat out she would not be providing anything specific. It would be a summary based on themes with no names given to uphold a system, which I can tell you, I'm going to actually hold that comment back, but there is, by law, former President Michael Sleeper was saying that they couldn't release the exit interviews. Mark Grams has been a very outspoken, for better or worse sometimes, love you Mark, but outspoken individual for teacher rights. Standing up as a former teacher, he has been trying to get those exit interviews brought forward. I can tell you a lot of them were not done, number one. Number two, the ones that have been done, former President Michael Sleeper was saying that the state wouldn't allow it. It's confidential. Well, no, it's not, unless it has her social, phone number, or address on it, which could all be bleeped out if it did, which they don't, because they filled out those forms. They can all be passed on. We actually have access to them as public records request. So there is no reason they can't get that information. So I will continue to say that. I have actually prepared a new exit interview form moving forward for anybody that would like to provide it and say, this is the exit interview form I would like. Ask me these questions. I will sign my release, my consent right now, that you can show the exact form that is being filled out to the board. When I heard that response, that was how they were handling it. So if they get them, they're only going to get a diluted down, whatever version of it at the board level. So that's my opinion. That's not part of that factual thing we were sharing earlier. I'm very passionate about HR, and exit interviews are only as good as what you do with them.
Right. We need a board that's listening and asking the hard questions and having the hard conversations and willing to hear opposing views, willing to hear some professional criticism without being defensive. Coming at them with respectful dialogue, understanding that, we trust that people are doing the best with the information they were given at the time, but also understanding that they may not have had all of the information necessary to make the best decision for our community, our kids, our staff. And I just want a willingness for them to hear the whole story and rethink some of those decisions and ask some more probing questions and understand that, you know, the people answering, who has some personal gain attached to their answers and who really is truly doing this for the betterment of the students, staff, and community without personal gains.
So, and it is in the board policies and state statute requirements that the board is to listen to all constituents, staff, students, community, everybody.
And to maintain two-way communication. So any of you have access to every board member for policy. So utilize it, use your voice as a citizen, and just ask to have those important conversations in a respectful manner.
So, I would love to gather email address if you guys are willing. I can send you a follow-up that has the links to the various sources that this information was pulled from, and maybe even some extra fun stuff. But as Sheila mentioned, the class Facebook page, CLASS, look that up, join that group. There's a lot of interesting dialogue as announcements are made or different concerns are raised. You know, it's a great forum to exchange ideas. But as I have shared with Sheila, introduced a new term, you're only willing, you guys are physically here. So I'm going to commend you for showing up in person, not just showing up on Facebook. Because if you only show up on social media, that's not activism, that's slacktivism. You can't just give a thumbs up and think you're making a difference. This is what I think of that. So I read that somewhere. I'm like, yes, we need more activists. We need people willing to show up. If you can't physically attend a board meeting, listen to it later. Be engaged in the dialogue. Talk to a staff member. Find out what's happening. Ask each of your retiree friends. Might reach out to one person that they know worked for the district now or just left or whatever. Have that heartfelt conversation, because even if I don't know if anybody's going to want to sit and read exit interviews, the board members should, because there's a lot to be learned from it, but from a general public.
The other thing you should know is we put all of our videos on class. Our videos aren't like the school board's videos. We show a little bit more than what they do.
And they stay there beyond a month.
They stay there forever.
Forever.
It won't be taken
And
down.
you can actually see the faces of the people speaking, the comments from the public, rather than it being hidden. So you're hearing it right straight from them. And we cut nothing. When this camera goes on, it stays on. So we've been asked that question. We do not edit our videos at all.
Full transparency, trying to improve transparency and communication was the goal behind it all. So thank you, Michael.
Good.
All right,
Thanks, you
thank you
guys.
all for coming.
Thanks for coming.
That's a wrap, eh?
That's a wrap.